Welcome to the premiere episode of the Crack on the Coast podcast, an AOH podcast by the Plymouth County Ancient Order of Hibernians. Here in the local scene studios in America's hometown, Plymouth, Massachusetts, we're going to cover everything that's going on with regards to Irish culture, activities in Plymouth County and beyond. In addition to that, we're going to have in-person studio guests to ask them, what's the crack? The old Irish adage for what's the news? Where's the fun? My name is Michael Schilling. I'm the current division president of the Ancient Order of Hibernians here in Plymouth, Mass, along with my co-host, Shawn Morgan.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shawn Morgan. I'm the Senior International Officer for the University of Massachusetts, Boston, and I'm pretty sure I'm just brought into this because I have an accent.
That could be correct. So on the premiere episode on today's show, we're going to dive into the reason for the podcast and an overview of what to expect going forward. Then we'll have our first guest, Pat McDonough, who's behind the Cape Cod Irish Fest coming up in March. And finally, we'll sit down with Patrice May and Greg Shanahan for an introduction to what will be a recurring segment, Talk on the Trail, a regular piece on the show that highlights a specific spot on the newly formed South Shore Irish Heritage Trail, some prominent Irish history markers in our very own backyard. So, Shawn, why do you think this podcast makes sense?
Well, ultimately, the South Shore is steeped in Irish history. There's roots everywhere. Most importantly, there's a huge renaissance in Irish culture taking place right now. Not only the South Shore, but sweeping all through the Commonwealth. There's huge focus on Irish music, dance, history. Organizations like AOH, the Irish Presence, all the way through Cape Cod up to Canton and the Irish Cultural Centre. It's a fun time to be Irish in Massachusetts.
I would agree with that. There's a lot of resources and activities that I don't think the public is totally aware of unless you're in the know. And that's part of the reason why we're putting this podcast together to inform and let people know where they can take advantage of those resources, learn more about their Irish culture. Because I think a big thing right now, which I think is the same for a lot of people, is a lot of people just want to know where they're from and where their ancestors were from. People, especially in this country, are most of the people that have that are here are transient in nature. We all come from immigrants at some point, one or another. So that's something that I think that really resonates with people, especially younger generations who might be 3, 4 generations removed now from when their family first came over.
Yep, absolutely. And also, Boston area was a landing spot, obviously, for immigration into the New World, and it still is. There's so many people that came here, landed in Plymouth, Scituate, Weymouth, all the way up the coast, and it's still the case. So not only are we going to expose people to the culture of Ireland, but it's also a great podcast for those of us who are fresh off the boat to find out where the crack is on the South Shore.
I would agree with that. So we'll go into a little bit about what the Ancient Order of Hibernians is, just so that everybody who's listening has an idea of who we are and why we're behind the podcast. We're an Irish Catholic organization, but more importantly, we're a community organization where we spend a lot of time. What our flagship statement is that we celebrate, we educate, and we commemorate. So we celebrate our Irish heritage. We educate everyone not just about what Irish history and what Irish heritage is going on in the Massachusetts area, but also throughout our country, over in Ireland, whether it's history or current events. And then we commemorate. We make sure that those important moments in Irish and Irish American history aren't forgotten. And we give a spotlight and we highlight important individuals that made made an impact on that and helped push along where the Irish are in America today.
Yeah, absolutely. And with everything today, we focus so much on the national stage, we can't forget the local scene. And that's, communities are what drive everything forward. And everyone's looking for that community connection. Social media has killed it a little bit, but I think we're on the other side of that. Everyone's looking to reach out, find something, and find that sense of belonging. And what better than AOH and what better than welcoming anyone, no matter where they're from, into the Irish family in some way?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say within our family, one of the most Irish people or Irish wannabes I know is my father-in-law, who's Puerto Rican. And, but also when we've had discussions and I've met his family, you see the parallels between the cultures. And again, like I've said, almost everybody who lives in this country is transient in nature because of where we've all come from somewhere else.
Yeah, it's
So
also just the Irish are a great bunch of lads, and we'll get along with anyone.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Um, so with regards to that, we've gone through what I think makes sense for why this podcast exists, why we're excited about it, the organization behind it, and I think from there we'll bring in our first guest ever on the Crack on the Coast podcast, Pat McDonough. He's the man behind the Cape Cod Irish Fest that's going to happen down at the Cape Cod Irish Village coming March 7th and 8th of next month. He also used to organize the South Shore Irish Festival down in the Marshfield Fairgrounds that took place for a couple of years in a row. But we're excited to have him on and would like him to introduce himself. Go ahead, Pat.
Thanks, guys. Hey, listen, I appreciate the invite and the honor of actually being the first guest. This will go down in history in my resume, so I'll definitely put that in there, and away I go.
I'd
So
wait for it to drop, Pat, before you put anything on a resume, but that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, I'm looking forward to looking back in history and having this being one of the biggest podcasts in the United States.
There you
So,
go.
but I appreciate the opportunity.
No problem. So I guess the biggest question, and we were kind of talking about it a little bit beforehand, and maybe you can recap, is just how you got into organizing events like this.
Yeah, a lot of people they come across and they go, Pat, is that your full time job? And I'm like, yeah, no, not really. I probably wouldn't make a living doing this, but it's kind of like, what I enjoyed is hearing what the Hibernians are all about, and it's about our culture, and it's about, at the end of the day, it's about bringing people together for me. So I love the fact that organizing an event and bringing 3,000 people to the Marshfield Fairground or 3,000 people to the Cape Cod Irish Village, and it's just like friends being friends, and yeah, we'll still buy the Shamrock hat, and we'll have a few beverages, but at the end of the day, it's about all of us kind of getting together, no matter what the nationality is, like you guys point out, and just having like a good time, and to be honest with you, that's kind of the passion that I have, and that's what it's all about. It's not about making a living running an Irish festival. It's about, I guess, bringing a community together, people together, and enjoying, um, Irish music. And we even throw a twist into our festival, and I'll talk about that in a little bit as well.
Great, great, and I would agree with that. I mean, most of everybody who is a hard worker in the Hibernians, it's because it's a labor of love. No one's doing it because they're gonna see financial gain from it or anything like that. And I think that's great that that's kind of how you categorize it.
I wasn't aware of that, so at this point, I think I'm gonna get my coat and head home. I thought there was a paycheck. So, Pat, obviously, before we get into the Cape Cod Festival, you were a huge driving force on the South Shore Irish Festival in Marshfield. Give us an overview of that. How did that festival come about?
Yeah, I was telling you guys earlier, when I was back in college at Suffolk University, I went to a nightclub down there on Lansdowne Street, and I said, "Hey, how about running a party?" And the guy says, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it with you." And we ended up having like 1,000 people at the event, and I feel like that's like about 30 years ago, and I haven't stopped. But I guess I'm always looking for a challenge, and we used to run New Year's Eve parties and Halloween parties, and then all of a sudden, someone from Marshfield, I know a few people there, came and said, "Hey, how about organizing a festival?" And I said, "I'm in." So it doesn't take much. Just ask me the question, and I'm not wanting people to ask me those questions right now, but surely they know my weakness when they say, "Hey, would you run a festival?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'm in." So
Now, what were the challenges with Marshfield? Because obviously it was at the fairgrounds. It's, you didn't hold that one during March. That was during the summer, but it's still an outdoor event. Where is that part of the reason why that festival ended up not lasting after a couple of years?
yeah, not to say it won't come back. It was just transparently, I have a second partner, and that's the weather. Right. So no matter what I can do, I can run the best organized festival and in the world. But if it rains, I get into a little bit of trouble. Right. And then my wife said, "Hey, we got kids going to college. I don't think you want to put yourself in trouble for the next couple of years." I said, "Yeah, it's probably a good move." So so I kind of pulled back a little bit on that, but not to say that it's certainly not off the table of coming back.
Okay.
So when it did run, what were some of the highlights for you?
Oh, geez. It was just, the stage, like, you can go to, a VFW hall and you see like a small stage, but then the way we did it is you bring in, the stage that's, 30 feet wide, 10 feet high. And I loved actually just kind of showcasing our local bands like Devery, Irish Whisper, Silver Spears. And these are guys that are kind of like the grassroots of Irish music in Boston. And it was a chance to basically like put them on somewhat the big stage, right? And just bringing people together, and then also the vendors as well. I was a vendor back in the day. I had my $1 million idea called Shamrock Nation, and we thought we were going to make the bazillion dollars, trademarked it, did everything, and set up tables. And I worked my tail off, and I had probably the most fun ever just talking with people. And it was amazing that. The love that people would show for a T-shirt that had a shamrock on it, and I think I own about 1,000 of those right now. But that's what it was. It was vendors, it was music, it was food, it was basically like nonstop. And again, you saw everything from baby carriages, like people wheeling them around, and it was just a really good atmosphere. Was the highlight, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I remember definitely several of those years, the AOH with Dick Wall, our state organizer, we had a table there and it ran the gamut. We were set up and people would come by, but we were also set up next to a table from a GAA organization and they had kids out there with their Hurleys and that's drawn to people into things that they might not have known about with regards to their Irish culture and everything else. And it was a good time at the like you said,
Yeah.
weather is your partner though.
Right, right. I think I saw you winning the tug of war contest that year.
Yeah. So what brought you from Marshfield all the way down to the Cape?
Yeah, so I actually remember sitting in a sub shop one day, and again, going back to just ask me the question, and Johnny Fallon, who's a Yarmouth police officer, retired now, called me up one day and said, "Hey, how about we run a festival down the Cape?" I was like, "All right, my answer, I'm in." So, Tommy and the Irish Village are a staple of Cape Cod. And in the 2 years ago, they moved from the small Irish Village, I'll call it, but to the larger Cape Cod Resort and Conference Center. And it was like the perfect location because you can fit so many people. It's basically like an airplane hangar. And again, we set up the stage, and it was a little less risky as well because we didn't have to worry about my second partner being the weather. But we also do it on the parade day. So the parade day is obviously always the week before the South Boston parade. So it kind of gives us a chance to celebrate St. Patrick's Day for like the whole entire month.
Sure.
But that's kind of what brought us down there, and we're looking forward to this year as well.
Great, great.
And how's the response been on the Cape over the years? Have you seen a growth each year?
Every year there's been a growth. It's just like, it's like a discovery. People go in and just say, "Oh my gosh, like I didn't realize like the new Irish Village," and we guess we can't really call it new anymore, but they would walk in and we try to, do something a little bit different every year to kind of keep them guessing. And so, the bands are primarily the staple of the whole entire event, but what's kind of fun in a way is the bands also love it as well because it kind of gives them a chance to be under the same roof, and it's like a big family reunion for them as well. So that's fun, and we have food, we have lots of music. But I call like the Irish Village Round. It's almost like a being on a cruise ship in Hyannis, So because it goes from 300 yards this way and 500 yards the other way, and so much to do there.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely gives that switch with Hyannis just being seen as a summer town. I mean, here we are, start of spring. It's that start of the summer season almost, just getting an early kick. And we're not better way with plenty of crack and plenty of good music and good times going on.
Yeah, it seems to be always different when you just go over that bridge.
Yeah. Now, has it been a challenge getting vendors to come down, or do they know with the event you're putting on that it's first class and they know there's going to be a large group?
So obviously we always, have the Ancient Order of Hibernians get our first table. Dick has been with me since I think I want to say at least 12 or 15 years. Now even today, learning more about the organization, I'm kind of even more prouder that you guys are part of it, and happy to have you there. But as far as the vendors go, they love it because it's, like you guys said, it's not summer. It's indoors. It's a little safer. And generally, that time of year is a little bit less busy for these guys. So I'm giving them as well a place. We have 10 solid vendors, everything from Celtic wares, Donegal imports, Boston Irish, Boston firefighter gear. We have Mickey Ward, which actually everybody knows Mickey Ward from the boxing days,
Yep.
still famous as ever. And he's there at the front booth, meeting and greeting people, and has Mickey Ward gear there as well. So yeah, so people generally leave there with a bag of goods too, and
Really
but the
great.
vendors love it.
Great.
Are there any teasers you want to drop beyond? So those sound like the regulars. Is there anything new this year that you want to drop as a common attraction?
Um, so one of the things that I kind of joke around about is that every band obviously sings Black Velvet Band and The Wild Rover, and you probably hear that about 12 times during the day, and we still sing it no matter what, even the 12th time. But this year we're adding a twist with a country band coming in for our last performance, which they'll probably still sing Irish songs, which we consider an Irish song to be Wagon Wheel for some reason. But
That is true.
so we'll bring them in at the end as a little bit of a twist and kind of switch it up a little bit for people.
And what do you think? So if I'm first person, never been there, what's something that's a drive to get them to come to the festival?
Yeah, I think the big thing is coming over the bridge and just it's gonna be one of those things where you're gonna walk through the door and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, haven't seen you in 10 years. And now you're going to meet friends. Even if you want to come alone, you'll be just like I always say, like if you go to Ireland, people are just so friendly. We have that same atmosphere there. It's like whether you're there for the first time or the 10th time, you're greeted with the handshake. You're guaranteed to have a good time. People are just friendly from the front desk to the back end of the place, and that's what we love. Is that obviously the Irish community is always so friendly, and that's kind of what we're about too as well. Is like it's a friendly atmosphere. That's what it comes down to.
I mean, a big part in what I always see is there's lots of Massachusetts in Ireland. There's lots of Ireland in Massachusetts, but there's definitely a resurgence in that Irish American pride and Irish American culture. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's a drive now, especially in younger generations, to see this peak of interest in Irish culture again?
Yeah, it's like you said, like, I'm first generation Irish. My father came from Galway in 1958. And again, always proud to wear the shamrock, which I have my shamrock hat on today, right? And kind of my trademark. But I feel like we're just proud of our heritage and what it's all about. I think that's the resurgence of it. And but I've had people, come to me too that they're not Irish, but for some reason, like they love Irish music. It's just upbeat. It's fun. It's like I love all genres of music. Maybe not so much opera, but at the end of the day, I love them all. And I think it's the same thing. You see bands from Ireland going to all over the country, like into China or New Zealand or Australia. Like it's just they're going everywhere, and there's a love, and a passion for Irish music. I think it's just because it's such energy, and but the same thing, like look at Boston. I mean, a new place just opened up in Dorchester called McGonagall's, and Warren McGonagall is a great supporter of all of our events. He has the Doubler in Boston, he has the Cottage in Weymouth, and like 3 other places. And Warren's the first guy to turn around and say, "Hey, what can I do to help your event?" And listen, we're also as an Irish community, we're also passionate about fundraising. Like, unfortunately, sometimes things don't go according to plan with some families, and the Irish people are always there first at the front door to give a hand. And Oren, like I said, whenever we came to him with different ideas or events, he's like, "Hey, Pat, what do you need?" And that's the kind of the people you want to be around. And his bar right now in Dorchester, the McGonagalls, is so busy. There's like lines out the door now. So
Yeah, and you talk about that in the cottage up in Weymouth. I mean, it feels like every couple of weeks there's a fundraiser going on there that someone comes to him, asks for help, and I think it's because of how successful he is when he just opens his door for whatever, whatever you're trying to raise money for, whether it's for the Quinn's Army or anything
right.
like that. He just puts it on and people show up and it's just a success every time. So
That's also because he's a good Ulster man as well, and we just help our own. That's it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's part of it. I mean, we put together a golf tournament last year for the first time, and I think 95% of the people that were involved never played golf in their life. But we said, "Hey, trust us. We'll put it together." And Oren, again, first guy to step up as a sponsor. But we sold it out and I told Declan from Devry, I said, "We're going to sell this out. Not a problem." We sold it out in basically like 4 days. So. And we raised actually $50,000, and we gave that money to a great organization called Tommy's Place down in Yarmouth.
Hmm.
So
So obviously, a big part of you being here today, being our first guest, is plugging the festival. Take this opportunity. Where can people get tickets? How can they find out more information about the festival?
thank you so much. So the event starts on March 7th, which is a Friday night. I call it like a soft opening. We have Devry playing that night. And then we go full swing on Saturday. We start at 12 noon. And just to give you an idea of the lineup, we've got the Silver Spears, we've got Irish Whisper, we've got Danny Gill and the Old Brigade, we've got the Keneally School of Irish Dance, we've got a band called Slancha. And like I said, the twist was following it up with the Jake Ash Band. But if you want tickets today, go to the Cape Cod Irish Festival.com. And I'm even going to throw a little twist out there. Go to the website, CapeCodIrishFestival.com, and just enter the code podcast, and all your tickets will be 50% off. It's relatively an inexpensive way to have a good time because it's $10 to get in. But if you want to get in for $5, enter that code, and we'll be more than happy to have you at the event.
great. It's funny you used the term cruise ship. And literally this weekend is a 3-day cruise. You could arrive on Friday, be there until Sunday, and you never have to leave the hotel.
Yep.
Everything is there. Food, entertainment, everything is there. And it's a great time. We've been down there several times. We were down there last year, definitely. And it's a blast. And like you said, there's so many people, there's families, there's older folks. It's a really great time. And everybody is just enjoying, no matter who you're sitting next to, everybody enjoys their time there.
Yeah, whether you want to come down for the weekend, by the time this airs, there's probably going to be about 10 rooms left, but you can call the Cape Cod Irish Village to book a room for the weekend. Or if you just want to come in for the day, come in Friday or come in Saturday. Again, that's an opportunity. You don't have to stay at the Irish Village. But it is convenient because of the cruise ship atmosphere like we talked about. But there's plenty of hotels with great rates in the Hyannis and the Yarmouth area right now for that weekend. So you can even shop that around. But we'll be there like at the Irish Village. So I'd love to have everybody come down and enjoy the event.
Great. So one last question that we're going to be asking all of our guests, just to give everybody a little bit of insight to everybody who comes on Craic on the Coast, is there a tradition that you either did when you were a kid or still do now that you would say is quintessential Irish?
Ooh, I don't want to bomb on this one of being the first guest. Geez, I'm stumped with this one. That's a good question. Tradition, I guess, is if for me personally, is that probably coming in today, and I think this is not the best answer, but it is what it is. I'll always wear something with a shamrock on it to show my heritage and to be proud of where I come from, and somehow, some way, you're probably going to see a shamrock somewhere on my shirt or hat or somewhere else.
Okay. Well, everybody heard it. If you're there the weekend of the 7th and 8th and 9th, just look for the guy with the share mark on his hat, and they'll probably be Pat McDonough.
Yeah, or you go through the first 50 of them and then eventually find them. That's all right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the
I
show,
appreciate it,
Pat.
guys.
This was great, and we're excited to be down there come the first full weekend of March.
Happy to have you guys there, and thanks for the opportunity today.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All
Pat.
right, thanks.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to introduce what will be a recurring segment on the Crack of the Coast podcast, which is our segment called Talk of the Trail, where we're going to highlight a point on the South Shore Heritage Trail and the stories behind it. But today we're going to just do an introductory piece about the trail itself, get a little information, give people a background. And so today I have Patrice May and Greg Shanahan from the South Shore Irish Heritage Trail, and you guys can go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Well, thank you very much, Mike, for inviting us. This is Patrice May, and I am excited that we're debuting this on Valentine's Day because I consider the trail a Valentine to the Irish community in the States and, of course, across the pond. And I won't belabor that. We'll talk about that in a little bit because Greg is going to introduce himself now.
So, Mike, thanks very much for having me and having us here. We're really excited about your podcast. I think it's going to be just another great example of some of the fine work that the Ancient Order of Hibernians are doing here on the South Shore and really across the state. And want to thank you for having us here on behalf of the Irish Heritage Trail. We're always excited to talk about it. We're heading into a new phase of the development of the trail, and we're looking forward to coming on and continuing our great partnership with the Ancient Order of Hibernians.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Patrice. So the big question, I would say, first one to get out of the way is for people that are listening that aren't fully aware of the trail, like give us kind of a small overview of where it begins, where it ends, how it all started, things like that, so that people who might have possibly heard about it, but really don't have it all, understood.
Well, I'll tell you this, that our name was very intentional, and it breaks it down so well. It's South Shore Irish Heritage Trail. So it's a trail, first, number one, right? It's a placemaking effort. It helps draw attention to the role that the Irish immigrants made here in the South Shore. There's a reason that the area is called the Irish Riviera, right? So we think of Scituate, where I live, is the town that is most Irish outside of Ireland, which is crazy to me. But so how did that happen? And I'm going to take you a little bit through history because that will get you to where we're going. It sounds like it's circuitous. Really, it's not.
No, that's fine. Us at the Hibernians, we love history.
Yeah. So, I mean, most of your listeners, know, that why the diaspora happened, right? We talk about An Gortamor, which is the Great Hunger. Some people call it the famine. There actually was enough food for the Irish, but it wasn't allowed to get to them. And so the people that came here were the survivors. I think about the tenacity and the perseverance, and that's what we're celebrating when we're talking about the trail. A trail is it's a pathway. And so we're guiding you through this pathway of our past, but it's also a physical trail. There's 9 towns that link Plymouth all the way up to Quincy. So it's inclusive of Weymouth through all the way down the coast, all the way down to Plymouth. And those now 9 towns have been indelibly shaped by people who came here from Ireland when they experienced no Irish need apply. And then suddenly they became our president of the United States. How did that process evolve? And that's really what that's all about. And then I talk about, or I mentioned that the intentional name South Shore. It is the South Shore. So that's the 9 towns. And then it's the Irish heritage. That's kind of it in a nutshell. And Greg, you probably have a few other words to say on that.
Well, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Patrice, I think we can't stress enough that it is the 9 towns. We're not only honoring, the memory of those folks who've come before us through the diaspora and coming over during the famine, which I never liked to use the word famine because it was a one crop failure. Right. A famine is indicative of all the food supplies in the country failing. It was one crop failed. It's just that the majority of the country was existing on that one crop. But when you think about the incredible courage it takes to go from a disaster like that in your homeland to come across the Atlantic Ocean and come here, and the massive impact that those folks had on this region, and truthfully, in the entirety of the United States, not to mention New Zealand and Australia and places like that. We do need to preserve that memory, but we also, I think it's important to, you talk about placemaking, things like that, and I think that it just drives the point home. The being ancestors of those folks is important, and it's important for not only us but the young people to be able to have something that they can point to and say, "That's my ancestry. I'm the end point of that sacrifice and that bravery." So through the trail and doing it in 9 different towns instead of just having one memorial, I think that we're going to be able to have a massive impact on not only the current generations of Irish Americans, but future, which is important. And the one thing I think about all the time, and I beat it up, is the beautiful memorial down in Cohasset at the Cohasset Cemetery. And I think about the impact that a group that I know and love and am honored to be a member of, the Ancient Order of Hibernians, had on building that all those years ago. And, we're engaged in today in that kind of activity that's going to have, I don't think I know, a lasting impact on Irish America, especially here on the South Shore. So,
Well, and that was one conversation that we had to start the show off, and with our previous guest, Pat McDonough, that as much as the Irish is just interwoven into our area down here on the South Shore, it also feels like we're in the middle of kind of a renaissance where people are, more, not necessarily more aware of it, but they want to be more engaged with it than I believe than before. And maybe that's because we're in a point now where, for a lot of people, they're 3rd, 4th generation now. So they want to learn about where they came from, So I think because of that, people will want to know the history. They will want to see where those markers are and be able to say, that's 100 years of hard work. That's where it started. This is where it's ending, which is you standing right there. One question I would have is how much research had to go in to find all the spots? And there's no way you guys could be done. I mean, it's an organic thing. I mean, you could put stuff on the trail every year, but the initial ones that you found.
Well, it's a great question. And I will say that we organized this 4 years ago. We launched it officially about 3 years ago, but it was an outgrowth of a partnership. It really did begin in Scituate, where I was part of a group called the Scituate West Cork Sister City Project. We have an exchange with West Cork in Ireland. And we, in the course of our trying to make that exchange really powerful, in addition to having young people from Ireland come to our schools and us sending Scituate kids over, we were looking at the synergies between us. And we were also looking at what made that area so powerful. And in the West Cork, and it's the entire west coast of Ireland, there is something called the Wild Atlantic Way, which is a definitive and exciting thing for Irish people, but also for Americans when they go over. That you see this. It's like a W. It's the logo, and you see that, and the words anyway are so poetic, aren't they? Wild Atlantic Way. But I want to be part of the Wild Atlantic Way, and we thought, you know what? Let's sort of replicate that idea and let people explore this area down here. And we've been talking a lot about people looking at the past, and you mentioned a cultural renaissance. I think it is really important that a trail works both ways, that for us to look forward, we have to look back. We have to understand who we are and where we've been before we can think about where we're going.
Sure.
And I kind of lost the original question because I talked circuitously, but
it was more about just the research that had to go in.
Oh, the research that went into it. So it was looking at the Wild Atlantic Way. And then if we're going to create something like that, what does that look like? So we knew there were certain places like the Brig St. John that Greg mentioned, or there's a Mossy Museum in Scituate, and we have an Easter Rising monument. But as we were looking at these towns, each town had their salient characteristics and monuments and placemakers that indicated where the Irish were part of it. So we each took a town. That was where this was coming from. Each of the members on this committee took a town. I took Cohasset because I work in Cohasset, and we had to identify places. We had to research it, and we independently did research. We brought it together, and that's how that was the initial. And there's so much more to learn, and we hope that listeners will help us if we don't have them represented on the trail website.
Well, I think that's a great way of just saying that the trail itself is organic.
Yes.
It can always grow.
Yes.
Because there's information out there. I know, we'll get into it in future episodes about just when we found out as the Hibernians about the trail and learned about it, there were spots on the trail that really excited us. And we have a project ongoing in Plymouth right now where we're trying to commemorate a part of town that was known for Irish immigration and everything else. But the idea that it's organic and that once you kind of put the feelers out there, people are storytellers. They'll show up. You give people the opportunity, and we've experienced this in events for the Hibernians, where if you just give people the opportunity to show up and talk, the stories you'll get and the history you'll receive is amazing. And I think that's a great part of how the trail could be expanded on, is just allowing people to come in and be able to give that retelling of history that people might not know about.
Yes, I think that's great. And I mean, and Greg is a newer member, but he is innovating us and giving us new ideas and helping us develop new ways of commemorating or new places, helping us really make new markers.
Now, Greg, you said this trail is going into a new phase. What's that mean?
So one of the ways I've been looking at it is to me, and you hit the nail on the head, there's so much energy around commemorating and learning about, our shared ancestry as Irish Americans. But the trail right now, I think, is really the future of our history here on the South Shore. And when I mean ours, I mean, Irish Americans, first, second generation Irish. It's really starting out where we want to expand it out from sort of a theoretical trail to a solid trail. And we had a great meeting with the Chamber of Commerce the other day, and we were kind of laying out our plans and, making it so that this is something that you can visit and you can touch in terms of, memorials and places and things like that everyone can go and visit, and that people can use really as a home base for hopefully even more interest and activity around Irish history here on the South Shore. So that's what we're building up to. It's not going to be easy. Patrice hit the nail on the head. We're going to need a lot of help. It can't just be the current board of directors. I think there's only 9 of us. Mm-hmm. We're going to need input and welcome input and help from people in all of the communities. So if anybody ever had an idea, reach out and let us know if you had a thought. But certainly be checking us out on social media and see what we're up to. And it's going to grow and it's going to be great. It's something I'm really excited about as sort of an offshoot of my activity with the AOH and things like that. But it's definitely perfect time to grow. And the one thing, and like Patrice said, I am new on the board, and that I really, really respect and admire of the sort of original folks is they started this during the pandemic, which wasn't an easy time for anybody. Certainly not for a nonprofit organization trying to start out. And they just did a fantastic job laying that groundwork. So moving forward, we're coming from a really strong position to build. And again, I'm super excited to see what's going to happen.
But I also think it's worth noting and we deal with this in the Hibernians as well, is that when you guys were starting the trail, not only were you looking and seeking for funds from a cultural perspective from the state, but just like the Hibernians have when we're doing events and commemorations, you were able to get money from the government of Ireland. And I really do think when we make mention of that, when we're in open public venues, that really grabs people's ears because they're saying, oh, wait a second, this isn't just a bunch of people who are Irish that are celebrating. The government of Ireland is engaged with groups such as ours, such as yours, and they're willing to invest the money because they know how important the diaspora is to just the overall life of the Irish people.
Yes.
and that's
It's worth noting too that the government of Ireland spends more money on their diaspora than any other nation in the entire world. So I mean,
that's a lot. That says a lot.
It does say a lot, and not just in the United States. We're talking about England and obviously Australia and New Zealand. So they really do have a commitment, and we can't thank them enough. And I think certainly a partnership we want to continue. We need to continue and see grow, but that's just another aspect to the wide-ranging partnerships we have.
And think about that as the size of Ireland, which is the size of Maine, and the fingertips that have gone throughout the whole world, right?
Oh yeah,
It's amazing,
it
right?
is.
The impact that this small country and for me, my interest has always been in the poetry and the language and the music, which is another aspect of the trail. So it's ways that we can activate that. I mean, we are looking at how as we move into phase 2, so right now it's kind of virtual. It's on our website, which I should mention is southshoreirishheritagetrail.org.
I'm glad Patrice mentioned that because I blanked when I tried to come up with it. So
check out the website, do a little Google search, South Shore Irish Heritage Trail. But we're also looking at like bike trails that would be on that path route, or small walking trails so you can get a chunk of it at a time. And then how we can bring the language back. And maybe that's through markers at the designated spaces on there.
Sure.
So those are all things that we're investigating. That's part of our research process. The research never ends, Mike.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. There's always something new to learn.
Always something new to learn. Exactly.
That's great.
I mean, not to beat a dead horse on that, but our the whole idea of having these memorials in all 9 towns, if you think about it, these memorials could ultimately become sites that are a place where people are, folks in those communities are celebrating culture. I mean, I can imagine, Kaylee's going on and feshes and whatnot, and dancing and, celebration of the language and things like that. And it could be happening in 9 communities in a relatively small space. And I think if those events were to happen, other communities would visit and it would just expand and grow out. So, I mean, we don't, in terms of having it be virtual, that's great educationally, but having it be a tactile place where people can go and becomes a part of the community too. Not only on a cultural level, but a business level. And if people are coming and visiting, I mean, we talked when we were with the Chamber of Commerce the other day, if people are coming and visiting these sites, they're likely to eat at a restaurant or shop at a store and, get to know the area and say, hey, I might come back here with my family next week for dinner, and word of mouth too. So, I mean, it's not only about Irish heritage. It's also about our shared community here on the South Shore, all of us together.
Oh yeah, no, I mean our division just met with the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce, and we're officially members of the Plymouth Chamber of Commerce now. And that was one discussion that we had with the people that run the chamber over there, is just how much not only is us being involved in the community going to do, but allow business partners to also become part of that community as well. And most likely those business partners would be happy to just get involved and help financially and progress what you're trying to do. And I'm sure that's going to be the same with the South Shore Chamber of Commerce as well. Great. So one last thing that I would say, obviously, like I said, this is going to be a recurring segment. We'll have both of you back or one of you back, or we can do a rotating board member situation.
Yeah, I think everyone's going to want to come down and spend some time with you, Mike. It's
so, as you said, we're all storytellers. We all got something to say.
Right. So obviously our plan is, as we go forward, is we're going to take all these different spots that are known right on the trail as of now and highlight them, give information, and kind of give everybody little sneak peeks and give them the motivation to get out there and actually find those spots and go out and see everything. And like I said, in a not too distant episode, we're going to talk about a project that we have going on in Plymouth right now to really expound upon one of the trail sites. But we do have one question that we're going to be asking all of our guests. Okay. We asked this of Pat McDonough earlier. I'm going to ask him from the both of you. Is is there a tradition, either when you were a child or today, that you sit back and you say that that's just quintessential Irish, and you still do it, and you think, yeah, oh, that's just no one else would do that other than the Irish.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what. So you've both been to Ireland, right? And you've been to the pubs when the Shanno is singing.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen this? Greg, I'm going to give you my hand. Have you seen this?
Yes.
So it's for the listeners, I am rotating. Greg and I are holding hands, and I always called it pumping. I don't know what it's called, but it's something. It's like, and literally that's what it is. They're pumping up the singer. There's somebody that is supporting the singer, and they're pumping them up. And for me, like, I grew up with that.
Oh, wow.
It's because my mother was born in the Gaeltacht, and
Sure.
so she's one of 10 kids. She and her brother were here in the States, and the other 8 of the kids are still in Carrow or my cousins, and we'd go over pretty frequently. And that would be something when they would come over, I would see, or if I would be in the pubs, I would see. And that for me is quintessentially Irish. That is a visual for me.
I'm glad. I'm very excited about this question. I keep getting different answers. It's only episode 1. This is awesome.
So, I mean, Mike, it won't come as a surprise to you. I'm going to tie it into my own commitment to Roman Catholicism, but one of my favorite memories, and something that I keep going to this day, and it just happened last week, is the practice of tying off a scarf or a piece of cloth onto your front door on St. Bridget's Eve. And we all know, St. Bridget is now a co-saint in Ireland, and the tradition is that you leave out a piece of cloth or in my family, a scarf. And when St. Bridget passes on St. Bridget's Eve, she will bless the scarf, and then you can in turn use it to put around your neck, and you won't get a sore throat or probably even a cold or flu ever again in your life.
Oh my God, right now that would be awesome.
I know.
So, I know.
My mother's name is Bridget. She was so delighted when she became a co-saint.
I was excited too, because I actually have a medallion I wear, a St. Bridget's medallion. But I miss those days when you'd get together and you'd make the St. Bridget's cross out of what we used to use, of course, construction paper.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think I could pull it off today. But I was pretty good at it when I was younger. But just a quick funny story. Last year, I had a new neighbor, and I went out and I tied the scarf that I had got from when the Republic of Ireland women's team was in the World Cup. I, got a soccer scarf, and I decided I was going to use that. I tied it off to my front railing, and I came out the next morning and it was gone. So I thought somebody came by and stole it. I was outraged. And sure enough, I came back from work that night, and she came over and she said, "Somebody left this really nice scarf in front of your house, Greg. Don't worry, I brought it in for you." So, not being ancestrally similar to us, I had to explain what was going on. And at the time I said, and thanks a lot for the sore throat. It's gonna be a long winter for me. But so yeah, that's one thing I've kept going to this day. And
and that's a bank holiday over in Ireland now.
Right.
So I think we should try to adopt that in the state of Massachusetts.
Absolutely.
We should just another day off.
it would be great to have another. We've earned another day off.
Yeah,
for all the hard work we put in.
Well, I would just like to thank the two of you for coming on premiere episode of Craic on the Coast podcast. And we are excited about having board members on to talk about the different spots on the trail.
Thank you. We are thrilled to be here.
Great.
Well, thanks for having us, Mike. And again, thanks for everything you do. And I would just say, check us out on our website, because we have a big fundraiser coming up. We're doing it after St. Patrick's Day, so as not to collide with everybody else's event, but it's going to, we're planning on having it over at Tinker's Son. And we're going to be announcing a really exciting musical act, and we're hoping to make it really successful, get some money in the coffers, get some interest going, and we're going to treat it really as a all South Shore event. We're going to be inviting people from all over, and it's going to be an exciting night. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and we hope to see everybody there.
Oh, the Hibernians will be there. Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael.
you.
Thank you. Okay, so I would just like to thank everyone. How do you think the first episode went, Shawn?
Yeah, not too bad. I mean, I think we've survived it as best we can, and hopefully nobody switched it off in anger or frustration. So
There you go. Yeah, and I think it'll get easier. But yeah, so it was a good time.
Yep. We'll just like to end with Gulamayogat. Thanks 1,000 for listening to Craic on the Coast, and we appreciate everyone for joining us as we explore Irish culture on the South Shore and beyond.
If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, share it with a friend. And if you got a story to tell or a topic you'd love to hear about, reach out to us via email at craiconthecoast@gmail.com. That's CRAIC on the coast@gmail.com. And you can follow Plymouth AOH on both Instagram and Facebook for any events and news that we have going on with regards as to what's coming up this March.
Next time, we're going to be diving into what else is going on through the month of March in regards to events, parades, and such, things that you won't want to miss.
Until next time, slán go fóill, goodbye for now, and may the Craic be mighty wherever you are.
Slán.